Starting at guard for Louisiana Tech, number 20, a 5'4" sophomore from Hammond, Louisiana, Kim Mulkey.
He's had the hot hand. Mulkey grabs the rebound. Starts a break for Louisiana Tech to Kent. Got it.
Kim Mulkey gets a technical.
Today we're going to talk about one of the most remarkable women I've run across in a long time, and I wasn't expecting to be as impressed as I was. One of the reasons is I've never played basketball. I know almost nothing about basketball, but I knew the name Kim Mulkey. I mean, who wouldn't right now, especially? She has one national championship for her women's basketball team at LSU under her belt, and she's charging again. We'll see what happens. I found her to be nothing short of amazing. And I hope you will too, as we take a look at the life so far of Kim Mulkey. What's your earliest memory of Mulkey? Mine was watching her play with the Lady Texters. I didn't know where she was from. I just knew she was in Ruston playing for Louisiana Tech and playing phenomenal collegiate ball. She got the nickname Spark Plug there, which I think is just exactly right, especially after learning more about her life. She led her teammates with a kind of leadership skill that's rare. But she has it, and she has it in spades. She played point guard. I didn't know until I did some research and frankly sat down with my husband and said, what exactly does a point guard do? I didn't realize that this is the person who's analogous to the quarterback for football. Football, I understand. And so I realized for the first time that not only was she an excellent player, she was an excellent playmaker. She was, as a player, the kind of person who could see an opportunity and take it so that her team would advance. Maybe your first awareness of her was when she was an assistant coach at Louisiana Tech. I certainly knew that she was there, and I knew about Coach Barmore, was aware of their time together. They had nearly 16 years together in that partnership. Some of you may be young enough that the first time you ever heard of Kim Mulkey was when she became head coach at Baylor University. She was there for over 20 years. And as the head basketball coach for the women's program there, she brought home the first national champion that Baylor had had in that sport. And then some of you really young folks may have only heard of her in the last couple of years when she became the head women's basketball coach at Louisiana State University. Oh, and she won a national championship there too. There's everything out there to be found if you're researching Kim Mulkey. Statistics, records broken, individual accomplishments. But there's not a lot of personal information about the woman, her childhood, growing up, what was interesting to her. The book that I found, and I decided to use it because she wrote it, and I thought, okay, this is a good way to start. Let's see what she says about herself before we pay attention to what other people, especially sports writers, have said about her. It was published in 2007, and it's written with a writer helping her, Peter Moy. The name of it is Won't Back Down, Teams, Dreams, and Family. That's pretty tough, and that's kind of a good description of Kim Mulkey. She's pretty tough. I chose this book not only because she had written it, but because it's, as I found, a very honest account of her life. It's often pretty gritty, it's very entertaining, and in places it's absolutely heartbreaking. I highly recommend this book to all of you, whether you like basketball, don't like basketball, have no interest in basketball, played basketball, follow collegiate ball, whatever. Her life is interesting enough and fascinating enough for all of us to read about and learn something important. There's an old saying, home is where the heart is. It means basically that wherever you are, if your heart is there, then that's your home. Kim Mulkey, at the LSU press conference announcing her as LSU's new women's basketball head coach in April of 2021, was surrounded by banners that read, "Welcome home." And there's a real reason for that. When she was responding to the very kind introduction that she received, and of course a huge crowd and they're shouting and stomping, they're so happy to have her, she made a couple of comments that I thought were particularly interesting, especially when you think about where home is. She said, "I can't wait to have some Ponchatoula strawberries, and I can't wait to have some crawfish." The girl had been away from Louisiana too long. This is a picture of her walking in under one of those banners that says "Welcome home," and they've got, the state of Louisiana. She was, in fact, home at last. But the journey that she took from home to come back home is the real story of Kim Mulkey. At that same press conference, when everybody is jubilant because they have high hopes of what she can do for the LSU basketball program, she said, "Oh, have I said lately, it's good to be back home?" And of course, the audience went crazy. In November of 2023, Kim Mulkey became the quickest coach in either men's or women's Division I basketball to reach 700 wins. That happened when her team defeated Virginia Tech. It was a score of 82-64. This was her 813th game as a head coach. I love this picture. It's a picture of her team, and they are wearing custom t-shirts. It's Mulkey 700th, and it's celebrating as a team what they all helped make happen. One more thing. After she led the LSU women's basketball team to its first national championship, she'd been named head coach in 2021, only 2 years before she won that national championship. At the press conference after, she said this, "I made a statement and I asked everybody to turn around and look at those final 4 banners. Nowhere on there did it say national champion. And that's what I came home to do. And evermore did she do it." LSU got its first national championship in women's collegiate basketball under Kim Mulkey. Her first year at LSU, she led the team to the second round of the NCAA tournament. This is a team that the year before had been just like 9 wins and 13 losses. Her first year, they're 26-6. She won the AP National Coach of the Year award after leading the greatest turnaround in SEC history as a first-year coach. She joined Gino Auriemma and Muffet McGraw as the only coaches to earn the AP Coach of the Year award 3 times. Who is she, though? Where did she come from? When she came to Baton Rouge, she came as the most accomplished head coaching hire in LSU history. She was a 6-time national champion, a 9-time Hall of Famer. And just weeks after she accepted the position, she was inducted into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame. She's the only person in college basketball history, men's or women's, to win national championships as a head coach, as an assistant coach, and as a player. She's one of only 3 coaches, Bobby Knight and Dean Smith are the only 2, in college basketball history to win national titles both as a player and as a coach. Pretty amazing resume, isn't it? No wonder LSU wanted her. No wonder Louisiana wanted her to come home. But how did it all begin? What was her life like as a little girl? What challenges has she faced on and off the court during her 6 decades? Before she was a women's basketball phenomenon, Kim Mulkey was just a little girl. She was born in May of 1962 in Santa Ana, California. Her early education was at Woodland Park Elementary. She started there in 1968. And there, when she was a 2nd grader, she experienced integration for the first time in her life, and it puzzled her. She wasn't quite sure what was happening, but suddenly the norm wasn't norm anymore, and she didn't like it. She couldn't understand it. Her mother told her, "You wait. Those friends of yours who've gone away will come back to public school. You wait." And they did, and in pretty short order. She was reared as a Baptist as a child. She became a Methodist during her college years in Ruston, and she remains one today. She had only one sibling, a slightly younger sister named Tammy, who was 11 months younger than she. Her daddy was Les Mulkey. He grew up in Hammond, native of that area, and he picked strawberries and he milked cows on his family's farmland there. He played basketball well and football well for Hammond High School, and he attended Southeastern Louisiana, but left early to join the Marine Corps. Her mother, Drew, grew up in Alexandria, but moved with her family to Hammond when she started high school. She played basketball for Hammond High, and after graduation, she moved to Baton Rouge to attend beautician school. The 2 parents met in Hammond at a swimming pool, both very athletic. They married after Drew completed her study to become a beautician. They lived in California because Les was still stationed there as a Marine, and they lived there until he completed his stint. They then moved back to Hammond. They came home, where Les worked in the pest control business, became quite successful with that, and Drew ran a beauty shop out of their home. This is a picture of Kim with her mother, Drew. Her mother and her father divorced, and there's really not a lot of information available about her father, but in her book she talks about her devotion to him and how much she missed him when he was gone. I expect some of you may not know where Tangipahoa Parish is, let alone how to pronounce Tangipahoa Parish. So I decided a picture of our state with Tangipahoa highlighted might be of some help to you. This is it. And then there were basically 3 towns, really 2 villages and 1 town, that formed the home turf for Kim Mulkey growing up. Here's a close-up map of Tangipahoa, and you see Tickfaw, and just a little south of that, Nettlebeanie, and then a little further south than that, and much larger than the other 2, you see Hammond. These are the 3 places that meant the most to Kim and continue to mean the most to Kim. In fact, she was asked, all the time, where are you from? Because she was known as the Hammond Honey, and she also would talk about Tickfaw and Nettlebeanie. And so finally she decided to answer the reporters this way. In the interest of being fair, I consider myself to be from Tangipahoa Parish because that's where all of my little towns were located. She talked about her parents quite a bit in the book and the influence that they had on her as a young child growing up. She said, my self-employed parents worked hard to make a comfortable middle-income home for Tammy and me. They avoided spoiling us, but they made certain that we had nice things. Twice a year, we made the 30-minute drive to Godchaw's clothing store in Baton Rouge to get new clothes. When she describes her home, it sounds just like a middle-class home, perfect. She said it was a one-story ranch style. It had a white picket fence in front. It had a swimming pool in back. Remember, the parents are athletes too. And maybe the most important thing in that house or around that house was a small basketball court that their dad made for Kim and for Tammy. And Kim has said frequently that she spent countless hours shooting and dribbling while she was growing up. She complained a little that because she lived in the country and it was out in the country, that she really never had a chance to experience living in a neighborhood. So she spent the majority of her time around family. Our neighbors were our grandparents, she said, aunts and uncles and cousins. I didn't have a best friend, and I really didn't need one. She said, while I did have some friends and acquaintances, I don't remember ever spending a night away from home. She said, my own bed, my own bathtub, in my own home, that's what I preferred. Early on, obviously the two sisters with 11 months difference, they're going to grow up at basically the same rate, but it became obvious early that Kim was the one with the really ingrained competitive spirit. And she loved to play sports, even from a very early age. When she was 12, she started playing Dixie Youth baseball in Hammond. She'd seen a form at school and she saw there were tryouts, so she signed up and she tried out. She had this to say about that experience. I wanted to play baseball because I simply had nothing else to do during the summers. There was no basketball for girls and no softball for girls my age. Baseball was all Hammond offered, and I knew I was good enough to be one of the first ones picked. I knew I could play with the boys because I already played with them at school during recess. There were lots of boys at tryouts, but I was the only girl. I was the first player picked in the draft, and I played 3 years of baseball from the time I was 12 until I turned 14. I was the only girl in the league. You see, she's always stood out. And she stood out for two reasons. Because of her athletic ability, of course, but also because of her personality, her competitive nature, and her belief there's no reason to back down. Go for what you want. She played baseball for 3 years. The first year, her team made the Dixie Youth Baseball All-Star Tournament in Ponchatoula, but she was not allowed to play because she was a girl, the only girl. Her positions, she played shortstop some, catcher some, and pitcher some, especially in the Pony League, which was the 13 and 14-year-olds. Her second year, she played second base, and that seems to have been, at least according to her, her best position in baseball. She made the All-Star team that year. This is a picture of the Hammond Honey on Kim Mulkey Day. It was declared by Murphy's Restaurant, big restaurant in town. She began playing organized basketball in the 7th grade, and 2 years later, when she's a freshman, she makes the high school varsity team. Hammond High would go on to win state championships all 4 years Kim Mulkey played on that varsity team. Her special talent was being able to see everyone on the floor and getting the ball to the open player very quickly. And she especially loved passing the ball through a teammate's open lane so another teammate could get a very easy layup. She was point guard from the very beginning. She said, in another one of those very honest kind of appraisals that she has in her book, she admitted that in high school her shot was maybe average. She had no rotation on the ball, none whatsoever, she says. But she said, if you left me open, I was going to keep shooting and make enough shots to beat you. I never worked that hard on my shot because I could penetrate past whoever was guarding me and create shots for my teammates. Despite my lack of an aesthetic shot, I could still score. You know, because of that, because of her ability to score, to get around people, she's 5 feet 4 inches tall. She's tiny by basketball standards. She could move fast. She could see the whole play. Because of that, her teammates respected her for her passing and for her ability to play the game for them, not just with them. They admired her and they depended on her. Her 11 months younger sister, Tammy, had this to say about her, because remember, Tammy's on the team with her. We just always felt we were going to win because Kim was on our side. Nothing scared her. She was our team leader. She was so focused, so determined in getting what she wanted. Other girls our age would go out partying and drinking and have a life. She didn't. You usually would have to come to our house and play ball if you wanted to see Kim. Another part of her absolute honesty in her book is when Kim talks about what conditions were like for girls basketball players during her high school years. She says, we didn't have nutritionists, we didn't have strength coaches, we weren't taught how to tape our ankles, we didn't have conditioning coaches, and we didn't have any advisors or counselors. So as a result, she says, they never taped ankles, they never took vitamins, and they never had appropriate athletic shoes. Her pregame meal, I love this. You know, today you hear carbs, 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 load up on carbs. She loaded up on roast beef and gravy with mashed potatoes and 2 pieces of lemon icebox pie. And she said, no doubt we played overweight and underprotected. What was the final year in high school like for her? Now she's working on and wins the 4th state championship in a row for Hammond. In the meantime, she also completed 12 years of perfect attendance, never missed a day. However, she was 30 minutes late for the ceremony at Hammond High School, recognizing this achievement of hers because the plane she was on a recruiting trip got caught in a storm and they were 30 minutes late landing. She graduated with a perfect 4.0 average. She was the class Victorian. She was AAU All-American 4 years. She was Academic All-American 4 years. Her high school jersey was officially retired, hence that Hammond Day, the Hammond Honey Day, Kim Mulkey. She had scored in 4 years of high school play 4,075 points, and she averaged 28.9 points per game. She was named Louisiana High School Player of the Year and a Parade All-American. Her coach, one of her coaches at Hammond High, Ivana McGee, said this about her. Kim was so good, she could have gone to any college she wanted to go to. And if there had been a professional league for women back then, she could have played for them too. She was recruited heavily, as you might expect, but these were the only teams that truly interested her. The University of Texas, Mississippi State, LSU, the University of Georgia, and Louisiana Tech. Where would Kim choose to go? I know that most of you know that she began her career as a collegiate player at Louisiana Tech. But how she got there and Why she got there might be a bit of a surprise to you. Sonia Hogue started Louisiana Tech's women's basketball program in 1973. In 1977, Hogue hired Leon Barmore as de facto head coach while she concentrated on recruiting. Also in 1977, notice that we've got Barmore coming in, and in 1977, Hogue first noticed Kim Mulkey. She saw her play in a state tournament for Hammond High and win it when she was a freshman. When Hogue saw Kim lead her team to a second state title when she was a sophomore in high school, Hogue told Barmore, take a serious look at that 5'4" dynamo. Mulkey's comments about choosing Tech are priceless. She said, I knew nothing about Louisiana Tech except that Terry Bradshaw had played football there. However, when I went on my first recruiting visit there, I knew immediately that Tech was where I wanted to go. The gym was packed and the fans hardly ever sat down. It was clear to me that this was what I wanted to be a part of for the next 4 years. I was used to winning in high school, and I didn't want to go to a college that didn't have an established basketball program with high expectations of success. As it turns out, Kim Mulkey was exactly the spark plug that the Lady Techsters needed. Her 4 years as a player for Louisiana Tech were truly remarkable. She was an amazing talent, and with that signature braid, the pigtail down the back, she became a crowd favorite. I was curious, where did the braid come from? How did that happen? She didn't have it when she was a freshman. She and her other Tech teammates were playing AAU summer basketball, and one of them braided Kim's hair. She realized it was really much easier to play with it like that, and so she adopted it. She didn't realize it was going to become her signature look. There was a story later when President F.J. Taylor was on an airplane trip somewhere, and the person he was seated back to, they were, making the nice, like, where do you work, what do you do? And President Taylor told him, and he said, oh, I know Louisiana Tech. You've got that little girl with the braids playing basketball. So, braids it was. Her record at Louisiana Tech, she played there from 1980 to 1984. Tech won 54 straight games. That was a national record that stood for over 20 years. They had other streaks, 30 games, 18 games, 16 games, but that 54 straight winning games was the big one. The Techsters' record during her 4 years was 130 wins and 6 losses. The 6 losses were for a combined 21 points. And she was named Academic All-American twice. Quite the girl. When Kim graduated with her undergraduate degree, her GPA was a 3.82. She graduated summa, and she had a degree in general business. She was the first member of her family to earn a college degree, so it was a major point of celebration. And her parents gave her a shiny new white Corvette as a graduation present. In 1984, she also won the first Francis Pomeroy Naismith Award. It's given to the nation's top collegiate senior who stands less than 5'6". She was 5'4". Also in 1983 and then in 84, she won 2 gold medals. She won the Pan American gold. Those games, they won her team 5-0, and the Olympic gold medal with Pat Summitt coaching her in 1984 for the Los Angeles Olympics. They took the gold, winning 6 games to nothing. Kim Mulkey had been a champion basketball player at Hammond High School, and she'd been a champion basketball player at Louisiana Tech. What would she do next? You know, most people assume with the kind of high school record and collegiate record that Kim Mulkey had, that she would, of course, immediately selected a career as a basketball coach. No, she actually wasn't interested in it at all. She thought that she might earn an MBA and then have a career working for a large, corporation somewhere. She considered law school. She was fascinated with that. And she even considered a life of public service. Sonia Hogue, though, had completely different ideas for Kim Mulkey. Her thought was that Kim should become assistant women's basketball coach at Louisiana Tech under Leon Barmore. Barmore talked with Kim, and he convinced her that coaching was an excellent career, and it was the career for her because of the kind of talent that she had and the leadership abilities that she had. They would go on to spend nearly 16 years coaching together. In Won't Back Down, Kim quotes Barmore as saying this: "Kim was worshipped in Ruston. How could I find anyone better? She knew exactly what we needed to stay in the ball game. She was a tough athlete who didn't hesitate to get down and dirty on the floor and work up a sweat. Nevertheless, off the floor, she was very much a lady." Mulkey's comments: "I was never going to be a coach. I really got talked into it by the president of Louisiana Tech University at the time, Dr. F.J. Taylor. He started the program over there, and he wouldn't take no for an answer. Thank God he didn't. He knew more what I was supposed to do than I did." Her record at Tech was splendid, just like her record as a player had been splendid. In 1985, she was named assistant coach at Tech, and they put recruiting under her as her primary duty. Remember, that's what Hogue's primary strength was at the beginning. And then in 1996, she was promoted to associate head coach. During her nearly 16-year tenure as assistant and associate women's basketball coach under Barmore, Tech posted 430 wins to 68 losses, and they advanced to 7 Final Fours. Something else happened to Kim Mulkey in her life during this period as she's becoming a coach and learning that side of the game. On June 6th of 1987, she got married. She married Randy Robertson at the Trinity United Methodist Church in Ruston. She had 8 bridesmaids, and her sister Tammy was her maid of honor. She had met Randy when she was a sophomore at Tech. He was 8 years older than she was. He was originally from Washington State, and his family moved frequently, though, so he basically lived a little bit of everywhere. His father was in the plywood business. He graduated high school from Broadmoor High in Baton Rouge, and he was recruited from there by Louisiana Tech. He was quarterback for the Bulldogs from 1972 to 1977 and was part of Tech's Division II national championship team in 1973. He earned an undergraduate degree in marketing from Louisiana Tech, and then he went to the University of Alabama and earned a master's degree in public relations and advertising. And that became the area that he excelled in, his personal business professional. The two of them had 2 children, but they were divorced in 2006. This is a picture of Kim with their children. They had a daughter, Mackenzie, and a son, Kramer. And both of these kids are now adults, and they were both very fine athletes. One thing that's very interesting when someone becomes an assistant coach, if they're really fine, if they have a record of talent behind them, then other universities will sort of ask if they could talk to the coach, or they express an interest in a particular assistant coach. Kim's first offer or interest for her in a head coaching position came from the University of South Carolina. That came in 1987. The next year, she received the same kind of interest from the University of Missouri. She batted those down so quickly, everybody backed off. They figured, okay, she's a texter. She was a texter as a player. She's a lady texter assistant coach. That's where she's going to stay. 10 years later, Texas A&M made her an offer. She turned them down too. Coach Leon Barmore, of course, knew of all these, because to do it correctly, they had to approach the coach before they approach anyone on his staff. He knew also that she'd turned down all three, but he knew something else. He knew that she wanted to be a head coach. It was time in the progression of years. It was time. He promised her that he was not going to sign a contract extension, and he told her that he knew she should be the next head coach. This is a quote from Won't Back Down, Barmore. "Kim, I'm not going to sign another contract at Louisiana Tech. You're the heir apparent. This is where you need to be." The problem was, he did sign the contract extension, a 5-year contract extension, and he didn't tell her. She found out about it reading the morning paper like everybody else. That hurt, because she had given everything, she thought, to show her loyalty to the university. But then she thought, okay, he needs 5 more years, he wants 5 more years. I will ask for a 5-year extension of my contract as assistant coach. And then when he retires, I'll be there and perhaps I can take that job. She also learned during this period, when negotiations were going on, that Baylor had contacted Barmore and expressed an interest in talking with her. She decided she probably should visit Baylor and just to look. And she said it was fine, but it wasn't Louisiana Tech. And she told the people at Baylor that if Louisiana Tech agreed to give her the 5-year contract extension, she was staying home in Ruston. Tech refused. It would be a decision that many would regret for years to come. And with their refusal, Kim Mulkey became a Baylor Bear. She embraced it. It was hard for her, because in more ways than one, she's leaving home. She's leaving Louisiana. Remember Sonia Hogue? Most people assume when they think Kim Mulkey, they think Leon Barmore, and that he was the most significant influence in her career life. Sonia Hogue was. After Hogue left Louisiana Tech, she became head coach of women's basketball at Baylor University. When she retired, she told Tom Stanton, who was the athletic director at Baylor, that she truly believed Kim Mulkey would be the perfect next head coach to move the program. Stanton already had his eye on Mulkey. I mean, everybody did, but he thought that no one would have a chance to get her away from Tech. But he decided he'd take a chance. So when you think about Kim Mulkey and you think about the people who were so instrumental in developing her as the professional she is today, don't forget Sonia Hogue. Sonia Hogue was a trailblazer, and she made room for another trailblazer. Tom Stanton, athletic director at Baylor University, had this to say about why he wanted Mulkey. He said, Mulkey was the kind of hire that the university needed to make in order to break a string of 25 years in which Baylor was just a training ground for coaches. Kim had the leadership skills that I wanted. She had integrity. She was intelligent and accomplished. From a leadership standpoint alone, you could envision her one day running a Fortune 500 company. This picture of Kim, she's accepting, she's giving a press conference right after she's become the Baylor head coach. You can see the sadness in her face. She's happy to be at Baylor. That's not the sadness. The sadness is that she's having difficulty with her marriage, that she thought that she would always be at Louisiana Tech and now she's not, and she just looks tired. She looks sad. This is what she has to say about it, though, about that hiring in her book. She said, "When I took the job at Baylor, I felt that I had to be hard-nosed with the players in order to change the atmosphere of losing." They thought they were going to lose, so they lost. I was 38 years old. It was my first head coaching job, and I told myself, you can't be a softie. It was a transition period for Baylor, and changes had to be made. The team had only won 7 games the year before I got there. But there are a lot of reasons why teams lose. It can be chemistry. It can be a lack of talent. Whatever the reason, it was my job to change it. You know, you have a team that is thinking it's going to lose because, after all, that's all it's been doing, and not a lot of expectation for something different. And here comes a coach, brand new head coach. They know about her, but they don't know her, and they don't know what it's going to be like to coach, to play for her, to be coached by her. Brittany Bruns, one of her players on Baylor's basketball team that first year, said this: "We knew that she had played at a similar level and that she knew what she was talking about. Sometimes she would even join us in scrimmages, and you could tell she could still play. She was tough, really tough. You never knew what words were going to come out of her mouth." Kim's pretty good at trash talking, it turns out. But she was a great person to be around. Everyone respected her, and she was always fair. We knew what she was coming in to do. We worked our rear ends off that first season. I would say she's the type of person you want to make proud of you. One of the things that came up over and over as I was doing some research on Mulkey was that she is known for leading by example. She tears into the referees if she feels like they're not being fair. She's going to let them know if a call is not a good call. Sometimes she tears into them with a kind of calm logic. Sometimes she uses some pretty harsh language. Either way, the important thing is her team sees her fighting for them. Because of that, they're willing to fight for her, and they do. At Baylor, she picked up the habit of writing on the team board, information board, the thought for the day from the coach. They were thoughts that she had that she thought were appropriate for where the team was at that point. And some of the things that she wrote up were, if what you did yesterday still looks big to you today, then you haven't done much today. And another one, today I gave all I had, what I've kept I've lost forever. And another one, which is my favorite, the real test of a player comes when things don't go to suit her. And Kim's favorite, relax. She had to constantly remind her teams, it's okay, we can do this, just relax. After every game as a head coach, Mulkey will pull her team together in a circle holding hands, and together they recite the Lord's Prayer. It doesn't matter, win or lose. Very slowly, very carefully, very methodically, Mulkey built the Baylor women's team so that it could believe that it not only could compete with the big girls, it could win anytime, anywhere. That work paid off in 2005 when Baylor played Michigan State for the women's national championship. They won that game, the university's first national basketball championship for women. They won it by 22 points, which is a big point spread for a championship game. That was the second largest point spread in the history of NCAA women's championship games. Mulkey talks in her book about how much winning that national championship meant to the Baylor community. It surprised her a little bit. It surprised her team a little bit. But she suspected it was going to be a good night when they went in to play Michigan State. She says this in her book: "The night we played Michigan State for the NCAA championship, I walked into the RCA Dome and I saw two men with a big sign. It read, 'Here's to you, Mulkey Robertson. Jesus loves you more than you will know.' I don't think those guys knew that The Graduate is one of my all-time favorite movies, or how much I love the Simon and Garfunkel soundtrack for that movie. I took it to be a good omen," and it was. She was a Baylor Bear. She was a head coach. She was a national championship head coach. She was home. She would spend 21 years at Baylor. I didn't realize there'd been that much time. She, in that 21 years, used her leadership ability and her coaching ability to lead the Lady Bears to a 632 win, 104 loss record. She took them to 4 Final Fours. She won 3 national championships with them. She joined the University of Connecticut and Tennessee as the only programs in NCAA history to win at least 3 national titles. Her Lady Bears had the first 40-0 season in NCAA history. All of the Lady Bears who started and finished their careers at Baylor had a 100% graduation rate. And the Lady Bears made the NCAA tournament 18 out of 19 opportunities. No coach, male or female, of any sport has captured the public's and the media's attention with their attire more than Kim Mulkey has. She has set the bar high for those who will follow her. My favorite quote of hers about her clothes is this one. She said, "Life's too short to wear boring clothes," and she's right. At Louisiana Tech, as an assistant coach, she wore regular, ordinary coaching clothes. At Baylor, she wore regular, ordinary coaching clothes. When she came home to Louisiana, when she started as head coach with the LSU women's basketball team, she made a little venture into the sparkles. She had a white blazer that had butterflies, large butterflies on it, and the butterflies had sparkles. It was great until, because she's very active when she is coaching, she ripped her blazer. I think probably a referee had made a comment that she didn't like or something. Anyway, she ripped it. 2 Baton Rouge clothing designers have helped transform Mulkey from those butterflies to glitter and glam and rhinestones. One is Jaime Glass. She's known as, or her clothing line is called, the Queen of Sparkles. Gloss worked as an engineer at Chevron, and when she discovered that there were no women's jumpsuits that were flame retardant available to wear in the field, she decided she would design her own, and she did, and the company accepted it, and they became quite good. That was her tiptoe into the step of clothing design. The other clothing designer in Baton Rouge who's helped create Mulkey's image is Martha Gottwald. Her high-end fashion brand is called New Brun. She considered a career in law, but she decided that fashion design was where she wanted to be, and so she tried it. In February of 2023, the media, the sports writers, were so interested in Mulkey's clothes that she actually had a press conference in her closet at her home. This is of a picture of Mulkey, her closet, and her showing reporters some of her very special game outfits. She moved a little further. She got past the butterflies and she went to this one, for example. It's a blue, shiny, very shiny fabric, and it's enhanced all over with big rhinestones. She's always had a particular fondness for the tiger. And so she will often wear clothes, these are two vests, for example, that feature the tiger face. And of course, nothing would please LSU fans more than to see their tiger wearing the tiger. She even was bold at one point to wear a velour suit made to look like it was a tiger skin, tiger hide, the pelt. And that was quite impressive. For the national championship, though, she added clear sequins to this tiger-inspired pantsuit concept, and she completed the look with high heels and a very simple black vest. She was something to behold, and of course, everybody loved it except the losing team. She made the comment when she was interviewed, this is one of her more outlandish of the outfits. It's her pink feather blazer. She said, when they said, "Why do you wear these?" She said, "Look, we're from Louisiana. We like sparkles. We like diamonds. We like Mardi Gras. We like to eat, and we like to party." That took care of it. They never were concerned again. Those of you who follow Mulkey's career and the Lady Tigers, the LSU women's basketball program, are probably wondering the same thing, and that is, what will be the next chapter for Mulkey? I'll tell you one thing that will be there. She has always been willing to give credit to the people who helped her along the way perfect her craft. I like this particular quote. She said, "The majority of what I do as a coach is what I learned from Leon Barmore at Louisiana Tech and Pat Summitt in the Olympics. They're hard-nosed, aggressive, get-in-your-face type coaches, carved from the same mold. My style of coaching comes from having played for them. I have a natural toughness about me that I was born with, but I also developed it further when I played for Coach Summitt and Coach Barmore. She's never, ever, ever stopped saying thank you." And I think that's a very important part of her personality. We'll see what she does next. For right now, she's working really hard with LSU. She's got a team. She's got a good team. She's working getting other players in. She's perfecting the players she already has, coaching them up, as they say. There's a bright future for her. She still has a good bit of coaching left in her. I wish her well, and I'm sure you do too.